some sugar.
No, I take my blood sugar. I've got pregnancy diabetes at the moment.
Yes, I know. I'm just asking you if you're taking a bit of sugar, make sure it's not too low. Yeah. So, we were there, and it was really incredibly bloody frightening. And as I said, we had very little food. We were fed by some of the neutrals. We kept hearing about Bomberg, and it didn't look as though we'd survive, because the Russians were shelling like mad, but it was still going on, 3 months, you see. And then and I'm a bit confused about the exact date, but probably very close to the New Year, about the 2nd or 3rd of January. Enormous noise. And we get woken up to yelling and abuse and rough speech. Very frightening. We're used to it by now, but it's still very frightening. Arrow Cross terror squad. Come to murder. So everyone has to go down to the basement where they heard everybody concentrating. And while they're deciding what to do, the director gets on to Mulder. I think, I'm not sure because I wasn't there, I was 8 years old, I was down in the basement with my hands up. Mulder told them, delay, procrastinate, and tell them to make a selection, check everybody's part, but not take everyone. Just take a selection with the right plan. Smaller numbers, easier to deal with. Bribe them, do whatever you like. I thought that they'd take everybody because they'd kill the bloody lot. So this is what happened. We're standing there in the laboratory space. There is an ante-room where the teacher that day, who was also surviving there from my school, gave me lessons that day. I remember only Margaret, Mrs. Margaret, standing up there with the bloody Arrow Cross guns, pointing at us, 50 people, hands up. And you'll learn that after about 5 minutes, it's terribly difficult to keep your hands up. Screaming abuse and negotiating with the leaders upstairs and the leaders of the house, the director. And in the end, after what appears like an eternity, we really think we're finished, comes the message, everybody go up, get your documents and come back. And like yesterday, I'm sitting there next to my mother. Mother turns to me and says, "You're not doing that. You won't risk this. That's hard." And I say to my mother, "Where?" She said, "The bathroom behind the information desk on the front porch when you come in." Exactly as I said, when you get in. The word was information, a huge word, a white background, in black letters, information. My mother used to man that desk somehow. Behind it was a bathroom. I often thought if they break in, I'll hide, but I wasn't going to hide in the bathroom. On the side, stairs went up, there were broom cupboards, and we could fit into the broom cupboard. It looked less open, a much smaller space, and I was going behind the broom cupboard. But at that point, smart as I am, I decided this is not the time to argue with my mother. So we went straight up into the broom cupboard, into the bathroom. I'll draw you this. Front steps. Come in, information desk, okay? Little passage, bathroom. Stairs going up, broom cupboard, okay? Broom cupboard, bathroom. We hid there. On this wall there were those medical airing cupboards. I stepped in there, my mother was a slim woman, probably your size, and I was that big. I stepped into the broom cupboard. It was January the 7th or 5th, I can't remember the exact date for something, I've got it written down. And it was freezing cold. I needed to go to the toilet, but I didn't dare, so I was told to wet myself in the broom cupboard, which is what I did. There was no light, lights were low. It was 5 days before liberation. And it was a bit further back, so we didn't hear anything. Apparently what happened, they lined everybody up, picked people whose face they thought were Jewish, or didn't like or wanted, and lined them up, 35, and one man. and he was a man for about 85, was regarded as a deserter from the army. And they marched them off. And when we came out, there was wailing and pandemonium as people were, worried about their relatives. So this was really a horrible situation. We survived that way. And my mother saved me for the 50th time. And one of my cousins, my mother's first cousin, my uncle, whom I met, who died 4 years ago, and became very close friends, they come closer, had his mother taken. Now his mother and a number of other relatives were here in the empty school bit, because this was so crowded, there was a bit more room, but this was warmer, this was brick, and this was fibre or whatever, so they moved in for comfort, but they happened to be caught. And she had a very big nose, for Auntie Martha, and she was taken. And my cousin was going demented, and he kept begging everyone, what can I do? And they said, go and see Wallenberg. And he went, the phones were still working, and he actually walked his way through this big city to find Wallenberg in a particular address, and went up, and he tells this story, how kind and compassionate he was. He really cried with him. He said, the director wishes to report that the terrorists broke into the Alice Mice maternity home and took 35 people. And Wallenberg says, unfortunately, I'm very sorry, sir, but these people are no longer alive. What they do is take them to the quarters, rob them, and then shoot them in the Danube. And my cousin broke down. He said, my mother is alive. Wallenberg put his arms around her and cried with him, but he said, they're only shooting, looking for me, and unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done by anyone. So the next thing that happened, one woman who survived this episode comes back, beaten to pulp, and says that she died before they fired the shot. She knew what was happening. And she survived the German boat on the river. The others were shot in the water. Gave her a blanket, and that's how she walked home. And I knew that. And I've been telling about this in newspapers and everywhere for 25 years. And about 5-10 years ago, I get a tape from Budapest that woman, aged 90 at this point, relates her story, how she was in the group that was selected by the Nazis and took them to the headquarters, abused them, and then took them to the so-called chain break and shot them in the venue, and how she died before the volley. So exactly as I remembered it at that time, 50 years later. It's actually on record. I couldn't take them. Anyway, so that was very close. And then, a week later, or 5 days later, another enormous commotion. So they're back again. And they were different. They were the Russians. And then the SS, who were here, saw the Russian torches shot through the window. And I was hugging the Russians, and if I hadn't, the bullet holes when the German Schmeissers were hitting the wall is where I would have been lying, but I was up kissing the Russians. I could have been killed in the last second of slavery. So that's the end of it. Now the rest I can relate much more quickly, but that's my Holocaust story. There were other episodes, but I won't go on anymore. But I had 6 very close shaves. Just to give you one, because I did say it, but it's not obvious to a listener what's happened. In the whole of occupied Europe, there wasn't one city which completely survived, and even Budapest didn't. But the difference between the way we survived and the difference between being deported to Auschwitz is enormous, because no child under the age of 15 survived Auschwitz, because they were going on heights. If you were young, you were killed. Now, we were about 2 kilometers from the other suburb of Budapest, which was totally cleaned of Jews. So in the whole of occupied Europe, this was the only island not totally cleared of Jews, but everything else, from Vilnius to Riga, to Frankfurt, to Munich, to Berlin, you name it, to Bucharest, all those places were completely cleaned of Jews, except the inner core of Budapest, and we were 2 kilometers from the outer rim. Anyway, so what happened after that? We went back and found out that our flat was requisitioned by the bloody concierge who put their relatives in there. So my mother took some friends and booted them out, and made a scream about it, got it back and so on. Then my mother worked in Hungary, I went to school. In 49 we left. We met some relatives from Czechoslovakia. Everything we had we converted into valuables like currency and gold in a small handbag. Relatives from Czechoslovakia said they look after it because they had a passport and they stole the bloody one. Went to Israel. And I chased them. 40 years later I was informed by the Israeli government of limitations of time, etc. Pigs in Israel. So we came out here, I went to Melbourne High. I did medicine in Melbourne. And then I went and studied in London and Edinburgh, came back. And then I worked in the Austrian for many years. Then I was asked to go back to St. Vincent's. I set up a centre which was named the Wallenberg Centre of Neuropharmacology. And then I fell out with some bastard who tried to turf me out, so they invited me. I got personal chair at one age. And I've got a lot of interesting things, but I'm not going to bore you about myself now. I mean, it's not relevant. So, but if you want to write, I'll give you a card, and you can drop me a note, and I can perhaps tell you more.
Why Australia?
A number of reasons. Being a war orphan, because the Nazis killed my father, I was eligible to go to America. I'm just looking for something. I've got different cards. They're not all mine. The Americans would have taken me, but not my mother, because I was eligible under some special bureaucratic thing that they'd worked out. I'll give you this one. It's got my home number, but the email had changed. netspace.net.au. I don't know if you can read that, but I think you can. Now, and I wouldn't, of course, go on my own. My mother was both in Austria. I went to school in a place called Graz, and mother was in a refugee camp. It was horrible. But anyway, America was out as a result of that, thank God. Canada would have taken my mother as a domestic. I mean, my mother only spoke 4 languages, had about 3 diplomas, and was probably smarter than anyone in the Canadian Parliament, but they would have taken her as a clinic lady. So this is our opinion of Canada. We could have gone to England, but who would want to stay in Europe? It's too close. Australia took us both, so there was no contest. We came to Australia. And we've done very well here, except my mother got sick and died within 6 years of arrival here. So that's right, terribly sad, yeah. And I had remained friends with the cousin who met Wallenberg. His wife was my mother's best friend. We've spent holidays in Paris a couple of times, and Venice, and I visited them in Vienna. And I had other relatives, including I had another cousin who was a writer. But it hasn't been easy, and those 6 months or 9 months are really hard. Yeah. So you can think about all this. Now, do you have to turn it off? I don't know how to. I don't want to touch it.